Dr. Tyler Kane had always prided himself on being adaptable, but 6 months into his assignment at the Alterran Royal Medical Center, he was still adjusting to the peculiar challenges of practicing medicine on beings whose ears could telegraph their emotional state more accurately than any human facial expression. The morning shift had been routine, treating a diplomat's stress-induced bioluminescence disorder, recalibrating a senator's neural implant, and explaining to yet another confused human tourist why Alteran painkillers made their hair temporarily sentient. "Dr. Kane, your 10:30 appointment has arrived," announced Nurse Zelara, her melodic voice carrying the professional warmth that made her invaluable in dealing with nervous patients. Her pointed ears, adorned with the standard medical monitoring crystals that all senior staff wore, flickered with colors that Tyler had learned to read as mild anticipation mixed with something that looked suspiciously like suppressed excitement. Tyler glanced at his scheduled display, which showed nothing more than royal consultation routine. The Alterran medical system was notorious for its understated appointment descriptions, a cultural quirk that had led to several memorable surprises during his tenure. Last week's minor dietary consultation had turned out to be an emergency intervention for a prince who had accidentally consumed Earth chocolate and was experiencing what could only be described as transcendental euphoria. "Any special protocols I should be aware of?" Tyler asked, checking his medical scanner's power levels and ensuring his universal translator was functioning properly. The device had occasionally hiccuped during important conversations, once translating his request for a patient's medical history as an inquiry about their romantic preferences. Nurse Zelara's ears performed what Tyler recognized as the Alteran equivalent of a barely contained smile. "Just the standard royal courtesies, Doctor, though I should mention that Her Majesty specifically requested your personal attention for this consultation." Tyler felt a familiar flutter of professional pride mixed with mild anxiety. Royal patients were always challenging, not because they were difficult, but because their medical conditions often had political implications that extended far beyond simple health care. The last royal he'd treated had been suffering from stress-induced chromatic instability, causing his normally silver hair to shift through the entire visible spectrum during important diplomatic meetings. The examination room door chimed with the soft harmonic tones that announced a patient's arrival, and Tyler looked up from his instrument preparations to see Queen Seraphine enter with the fluid grace that seemed to be standard issue for Alteran nobility. She moved with the kind of effortless elegance that made Tyler acutely aware of his own tendency to bump into furniture and drop things at inappropriate moments. Tyler had seen the Queen before during formal medical center ceremonies, but never this close, and certainly never as her attending physician. She possessed the ethereal beauty common to her species, but amplified to a degree that made Tyler understand why Alteran poets spent entire careers composing verses about royal features. Her ears, longer and more delicately pointed than those of common Alterans, were adorned with crystalline jewelry that seemed to pulse with soft light in response to her heartbeat. "Your Majesty," Tyler said, offering the formal bow that he'd practiced obsessively during his cultural orientation training, "I'm honored to provide your medical consultation today." Queen Seraphine's ears flickered with colors that Tyler's medical training helped him interpret as amusement tinged with genuine warmth. "Please, Dr. Kane, let us maintain the professional informality that makes your medical practice so refreshing. I've heard excellent reports about your unconventional but effective treatment methods." Tyler activated his medical scanner, grateful for the familiar routine of standard diagnostic procedures. The device immediately began displaying the complex readouts that characterized Alteran physiology, quantum cellular structures, bioelectric field measurements, and neural pathway maps that looked like abstract art created by a mathematician with artistic pretensions. "Your vital signs look excellent, Your Majesty," Tyler observed, noting the harmonic patterns that indicated optimal health across all major biological systems. though I'm detecting some minor stress indicators in your neural field resonance patterns. Have you been experiencing any unusual pressure or anxiety recently?" The Queen's laugh was like wind chimes made of starlight, causing Tyler's scanner to register sympathetic harmonic vibrations in the surrounding medical equipment. "Doctor, I rule a planet with 12 billion inhabitants, maintain diplomatic relations with 15 interstellar governments, and somehow find time to oversee the education of my sister's children who have discovered they can make the palace fountains sing opera if they concentrate hard enough. Stress is my natural state of being." Tyler couldn't help but grin as he adjusted his scanner's sensitivity settings. "Point taken, though your biorhythm patterns suggest you're handling that stress remarkably well. Your species' natural stress response mechanisms are genuinely impressive from a medical standpoint." "It's kind of you to say so," Queen Seraphine replied, settling more comfortably on the examination platform. "Though I confess I've been curious about human stress response systems. Your species seems to thrive under pressure in ways that our medical textbooks find somewhat baffling." Tyler began the detailed scans that royal consultations required, his instruments mapping the intricate energy patterns that flowed through all-Terran physiology like visible music. "We're a stubborn species. We tend to either adapt or complain loudly about our problems until someone fixes them for us." The Queen's ears performed what Tyler was learning to recognize as barely contained laughter, a refreshingly honest assessment. "Tell me, Dr. Kane, in your professional opinion, would you be willing to take on the long-term management of my health monitoring? My previous physician recently accepted a position with the Intergalactic Medical Council, and I find myself in need of someone who can combine medical expertise with a more relaxed approach to royal protocol." Tyler paused in his scanning, considering the request. Long-term royal appointments were prestigious but demanding, requiring extensive security clearance and a willingness to be available for medical emergencies that might occur during diplomatic crises or while the Queen was traveling to distant worlds. On the other hand, the position would provide unparalleled opportunities for advancing human understanding of all-Terran medical science. "That sounds like an honor and a challenge," Tyler said, watching his scanner complete its analysis of the Queen's cardiovascular quantum resonance patterns. The readings were fascinating. All-Terran hearts didn't just pump blood. They generated harmonic frequencies that synchronized with their emotional states and could apparently influence their healing abilities. "I'd be happy to take on that responsibility." Queen Seraphine's ears shifted to colors that Tyler's scanner identified as indicating elevated emotional resonance. "Wonderful. I was hoping you'd be amenable to such an arrangement. The position would require a significant commitment, of course, but I believe the professional relationship could be mutually beneficial." Tyler, absorbed in the complex readings his scanner was producing, nodded absently while making notes in his medical pad. "Absolutely, Your Majesty. Whatever you need, I'm here for you." The Queen leaned forward slightly, her voice taking on a tone that Tyler's translator registered as carrying multiple layers of meaning. "Then, Dr. Kane, I must ask directly, would you be willing to commit to this arrangement on a permanent basis, to accept the full responsibility that such a position would entail?" Tyler glanced up from his scanner, noting that Queen Seraphine's ears were now cycling through colors he'd never seen before, deep purples and golds that seemed to pulse with inner light. His medical instincts kicked in, wondering if he should be concerned about the unusual chromatic display, but the Queen seemed perfectly healthy and was smiling at him with an expression of hopeful expectation. "Of course," Tyler said, returning his attention to his instruments while speaking with the casual warmth that had made him popular among patients who appreciated his informal bedside manner. "Yes, baby, I'm absolutely committed to providing you with the best medical care possible." The words left his mouth before he realized what he'd said, his attention split between the complex scanner readings and the Queen's request. It was exactly the kind of affectionate casual response he might give to a friend or colleague back on Earth, completely natural, utterly harmless, and apparently the most catastrophic thing he could possibly have said in this particular context. The silence that followed was so complete that Tyler could hear the quantum hum of his medical equipment and the distant harmonic vibrations from the medical center's living architecture. Every Alteran in the room, Nurse Zelara, the attending medical technician, and even the maintenance staff who had been quietly calibrating equipment in the corner, had frozen in place as if someone had activated a temporal stasis field. Tyler looked up from his scanner to find Queen Seraphine staring at him with an expression of profound surprise, mixed with what his medical training suggested might be joy. Her ears were now glowing with colors so bright they were casting visible light patterns on the examination room walls. "Dr. Kane," Nurse Zelara said, her voice carefully controlled but carrying undertones that Tyler's translator was struggling to process. Did you mean to say what you just said?" Tyler blinked, running his casual response through his mind and trying to figure out what had caused such an extreme reaction. "I just agreed to take on the Queen's long-term medical care. Was there some protocol I missed?" Nurse Zelara's ears were performing what appeared to be a complex dance of barely contained excitement. "Doctor, your translator just rendered your response as, 'Yes, beloved one, I accept the bond of eternal commitment.' In our language, that's a formal acceptance of a marriage proposal." Tyler felt the blood drain from his face as the full scope of his linguistic disaster became clear. His casual "yes, baby" had apparently just legally married him to the most powerful being on the planet. "Oh," he said weakly, as Queen Seraphine's ears continued to glow with what he was beginning to suspect was definitely not a medical emergency. That's not what I meant to say." But judging by the expression on the Queen's face and the way every Alteran in the room was looking at him with barely contained excitement, Tyler had a sinking feeling that what he'd meant to say might no longer be relevant. The first indication that Tyler's life had fundamentally changed came when Nurse Zelara approached him with a data pad glowing with official seals and what appeared to be congratulatory messages from various planetary dignitaries. Her ears were performing what Tyler was learning to recognize as the Alteran equivalent of barely contained glee. "Royal Consort Tyler," she said, her voice carrying the kind of formal respect usually reserved for visiting diplomats and people who could authorize medical equipment budgets. "I've prepared your updated medical credentials and security clearances. Your new quarters in the Royal Wing are being prepared as we speak." Tyler stared at the data pad, which was displaying his medical license with several new titles that he was fairly certain he hadn't earned through any conventional educational process. "Nurse Zelara, there's been a massive misunderstanding. I was just agreeing to provide medical care, not whatever this is." Queen Seraphine, who had been quietly observing the chaos her medical appointment had generated, stepped forward with the graceful movement that seemed to make the very air around her more elegant. "Dr. Kane, I understand your confusion, but I must explain the legal implications of your words." Tyler's medical scanner, still running its diagnostic routines, chose this moment to emit a series of chimes that his translator helpfully identified as quantum entanglement detection protocols activated. The device was apparently registering some form of bioelectric connection between him and the Queen that hadn't existed 10 minutes ago. "Legal implications," Tyler repeated, trying to process the information while his scanner displayed readings that suggested his neural patterns were somehow synchronizing with Queen Seraphine's. "I thought we were discussing a medical appointment." "In Alteran culture," the Queen explained, her ears cycling through colors that Tyler's medical training helped him interpret as patient explanation mixed with what might have been fondness. "The phrase you used is a formal declaration of willingness to enter into a permanent pair bond. It's not merely a marriage proposal. It's a commitment that creates actual neurological connections between partners." Tyler looked at his scanner's readings, which were now showing quantum field fluctuations that resembled nothing so much as his brain trying to establish wireless contact with the Queen's nervous system. "You mean this is actually affecting our biology?" Alter pair bonding involves quantum entanglement of consciousness patterns. Queen Seraphine confirmed, settling gracefully into one of the medical chairs while her ears continued their chromatic display. It's an evolutionary adaptation that ensures compatibility between mates and enhances both partners' health and longevity. The process is automatically triggered by formal acceptance statements. Tyler ran his hands through his hair, a gesture that apparently translated as emotional distress indicator, according to Nurse Zelara's sympathetic ear twitching. So when I said, "Yes, baby," I accidentally initiated some kind of biological bonding process. Precisely, the Queen said, though her tone suggested she found his distress more endearing than concerning. Though I should mention that the bonding can only occur between compatible partners. The fact that the quantum entanglement has taken hold suggests that we are, from a biological standpoint, remarkably well suited for each other. Tyler's scanner was now displaying neural harmony patterns that looked like abstract art created by someone with a degree in both neuroscience and aesthetic theory. The readings suggested that his brain waves were not only synchronizing with Queen Seraphine's, but somehow improving both their cognitive functions through the process. This is fascinating from a medical perspective, Tyler admitted, his scientific curiosity temporarily overriding his personal panic. But I should point out that I know absolutely nothing about being a royal consort. My areas of expertise include trauma medicine, xenobiology, and remembering to water my office plants. I'm not exactly qualified for intergalactic diplomacy. Royal consort duties are quite manageable, Nurse Zelara interjected helpfully, consulting her data pad. Primary responsibilities include maintaining the Queen's health, providing emotional support during diplomatic functions, and occasionally serving as a sounding board for policy decisions. Also, formal state dinners require appropriate attire, but the royal tailors are already preparing your ceremonial wardrobe. Tyler felt a new wave of panic as the reality of his situation continued to expand. Ceremonial wardrobe, how many people know about this? The quantum entanglement was automatically registered with the Planetary Consciousness Database, Queen Seraphine explained, her ears now cycling through what Tyler suspected might be amusement. By now, every major news network in the galaxy has probably reported on the Queen's unexpected bonding with the human physician. As if summoned by her words, Tyler's communicator began chiming with incoming messages from colleagues, friends, and what appeared to be several major media outlets requesting interviews about his whirlwind royal romance. His medical scanner helpfully informed him that his stress levels were approaching levels typically seen in patients facing major surgery. "Your Majesty," a new voice interrupted, carrying tones that Tyler's translator tagged as barely controlled hostility mixed with professional courtesy. Tyler turned to see Dr. Kine approaching, a tall Altaran whose medical credentials were impressive and whose ears were currently pressed so flat against his head that they resembled angry parentheses. "Doctor." "Kine," Queen Seraphine acknowledged, though Tyler noticed her ears had shifted to colors that suggested increased alertness. "I trust you've heard about the recent developments." "Indeed, Doctor," Kine replied, his gaze fixed on Tyler with the intensity of someone examining a particularly virulent pathogen. "I must say, Your Majesty, the medical center is quite surprised by your choice of bonding partner." Dr. Kane, while competent in basic xenomedicine, lacks the advanced training typically expected of royal medical staff. Tyler felt his professional pride bristle alongside his personal anxiety. "I graduated top of my class from the Terran Medical Academy and completed specialized training in interspecies medicine. My patient outcomes have been consistently excellent." "Human medical training, Doctor," Kine said dismissively, his ears performing what appeared to be the equivalent of an eye roll. "Hardly comparable to advanced Altaran medical sciences. I doubt you could even perform basic quantum cellular regeneration without supervision." Tyler's scanner, still running its diagnostic routines, suddenly emitted a series of harmonious chimes. The device was detecting something that made its display light up like a Christmas tree made of medical data. According to the readings, the quantum entanglement between Tyler and Queen Seraphine was creating resonance effects that were actively improving both their cellular regeneration rates, neural efficiency, and immune system responses. Actually, Tyler said, staring at the readings in amazement, it appears that the bonding process is creating some unprecedented medical benefits. Your Majesty, your bioelectric field strength has increased by 30% since the entanglement began, and your neural processing speeds are showing remarkable enhancement. Queen Seraphine's ears brightened with interest. And your own readings, Dr. Kane. Tyler checked his scanner's analysis of his own vital signs, then double-checked, because the results seemed too extraordinary to be accurate. My neuroplasticity has increased dramatically. My immune system is functioning at levels I've never seen in human subjects, and my capacity for processing complex medical data appears to have expanded significantly. It's as if the quantum entanglement is optimizing both our biological systems. Dr. Kine's ears flattened further, if such a thing was possible. Convenient readings from a human device. I hardly think we should base royal medical decisions on equipment designed for primitive Earth physiology. The readings are confirmed by the medical center's central diagnostic system, Nurse Zelara announced, consulting her own instruments with obvious delight. The quantum bonding has created biological enhancements in both the Queen and royal consort Tyler that exceed anything in our medical databases. Tyler found himself caught between scientific fascination and existential crisis. So let me understand this correctly. I accidentally married the Queen with a casual expression. This triggered an actual biological bonding process, and now we're both functioning at enhanced physical and mental capacity. That's a remarkably concise summary, Queen Seraphine said, her ears cycling through what Tyler was beginning to recognize as barely contained laughter. Though you should know that the bonding process, while legally binding, can be dissolved by mutual consent if you find the arrangement genuinely intolerable. Tyler looked at his scanner's continuous stream of data showing improved health markers, enhanced cognitive function, and what appeared to be the most stable biological readings of his entire life. Then he looked at Queen Seraphine, whose elegant beauty was now accompanied by a quantum connection that made him feel more mentally clear and emotionally balanced than he'd ever experienced. This is definitely not what I expected when I agreed to work extra shifts at the Royal Medical Center, he said finally, then paused as another thought occurred to him. Wait, what exactly does being royal consort involve? Besides the obvious medical responsibilities and formal dinners. Queen Seraphine's smile created visible harmonics in Tyler's enhanced vision, and he realized that their quantum entanglement was allowing him to perceive layers of beauty and meaning that his baseline human senses had never been capable of detecting. Perhaps, she said, extending her hand in a gesture that created cascading patterns of light through their shared bioelectric field, we should discuss that somewhere more private than a medical examination room. Tyler took her hand, feeling the quantum connection deepen and stabilize in ways that his medical training told him were probably irreversible and definitely unprecedented. I suppose that would be appropriate. Though I should warn you, Your Majesty, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. Neither did I, Queen Seraphine admitted, until today. Tyler's crash course in royal protocol was interrupted 3 hours later when emergency alarms began echoing through the medical center's crystalline corridors. His enhanced hearing, apparently one of the quantum bonding side effects, allowed him to distinguish between the various alert patterns. Code Blue for medical emergency, Code Gold for diplomatic crisis, and the particularly ominous Code Crimson that meant someone very important was in immediate danger. Royal medical emergency, Nurse Zelara announced, her ears rigid with professional urgency as she burst into the consultation room where Tyler had been attempting to understand his new legal status. Queen Seraphine is experiencing acute stress cascade syndrome in the diplomatic wing. Her condition requires immediate spousal intervention protocols. Tyler stared at her blankly. Spousal intervention protocols. I've been married for exactly 3 hours. What am I supposed to know about spousal intervention anything? The quantum bonding creates unique medical authority. Nurse Zilara explained rapidly while gathering emergency medical equipment. Only you can authorize certain treatments, and your bioelectric resonance is the most effective therapy for her current condition. Dr. Kine is already treating her, but the standard medications aren't providing sufficient relief. Tyler's newly enhanced analytical abilities process this information with startling clarity. Queen Seraphine's stress response system would be operating on quantum biological principles that human medicine barely understood, but their bonding meant his presence could provide harmonic stabilization that conventional treatments couldn't achieve. "Lead the way," Tyler said, grabbing his medical scanner and discovering that his movement speed and coordination had also improved significantly. The quantum entanglement was apparently optimizing more than just his cognitive functions. The diplomatic wing was in controlled chaos when they arrived. All-Terran officials moved with urgent grace through corridors lined with organic architecture that pulsed with stress-induced warning colors. Tyler could see Queen Seraphine through the transparent walls of the medical bay, surrounded by monitoring equipment that painted her vital signs in complex light patterns across the curved ceiling. "Doctor." Kine looked up from his instruments with obvious relief mixed with what Tyler suspected might be grudging respect. "Royal Consort Tyler, the Queen's neural cascade patterns are destabilizing faster than our standard protocols can compensate. The diplomatic crisis with the Xerian coalition has triggered a stress response that's affecting her quantum cellular matrix." Tyler approached the medical bay, his scanner automatically interfacing with the advanced All-Terran monitoring systems. The readings were alarming. Queen Seraphine's bioelectric field was fluctuating wildly. Her consciousness patterns showed signs of dangerous fragmentation, and her cellular regeneration rates were dropping to potentially critical levels. "What happened?" Tyler asked, moving to the Queen's side and immediately feeling their quantum connection strengthen in response to proximity. "Trade negotiations broke down," Queen Seraphine said weakly, her ears pale and barely moving. "The Xerian representative accused us of negotiating in bad faith, threatened to withdraw from the agricultural exchange program that feeds millions of our citizens, and then suggested that my recent marriage to an inferior species demonstrated poor judgment in all diplomatic matters." Tyler felt anger surge through their connection, amplified by the quantum entanglement into something that made the medical equipment around them hum with sympathetic resonance. "They said what?" "Dr. Kane, doctor," Kine said urgently, "your emotional state is affecting the Queen's bioelectric field. The quantum bonding means your feelings directly influence her physiological responses." Tyler took a deep breath, using meditation techniques from his medical training to center his emotional state. Almost immediately, Queen Seraphine's vital signs began stabilizing, and her ears regained some of their natural color. "That's remarkable," Dr. Kine observed, studying his instruments with obvious fascination. "Your conscious emotional regulation is providing more effective therapy than any pharmaceutical intervention we have available." Tyler activated his scanner and began running detailed diagnostics, his enhanced cognitive abilities processing the complex readouts with unprecedented efficiency. Her stress response is biochemically linked to diplomatic pressure, but the quantum bonding is creating feedback loops that amplify the effects. Standard All-Terran medical protocols aren't designed to account for entangled consciousness patterns. "Can you treat it?" Nurse Zilara asked, monitoring secondary systems while Dr. Kine focused on the primary medical readings. Tyler studied the data, his enhanced analytical capacity suggesting treatment approaches that combined human medical intuition with All-Terran biotechnology. "I think so, but it requires techniques that don't exist in either of our medical databases. I need to use the quantum connection to directly stabilize her neural patterns, while treating the underlying physiological stress response. That's extremely dangerous, Dr. Kine warned. Direct neural interface without proper training could damage both your consciousness patterns permanently. Tyler looked at Queen Seraphine, whose condition was clearly deteriorating despite their proximity. Her breathing was becoming shallow, her ears were losing luminosity, and his scanner was detecting quantum field instabilities that suggested imminent consciousness fragmentation. "Your Majesty," Tyler said, taking her hand and feeling their connection deepen, "I need your permission to attempt an experimental treatment. It involves using our quantum bonding to directly synchronize our neural patterns while I provide bioelectric support for your cellular regeneration." Queen Seraphine's eyes focused on him with difficulty. "The risks?" "Unknown," Tyler admitted. "This is completely unprecedented, but your current deterioration rate suggests we have less than an hour before permanent damage occurs." "Then we proceed," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to making decisions with incomplete information and potentially catastrophic consequences. Tyler activated every diagnostic system available, creating a real-time monitoring network that would track both their vital signs throughout the procedure. "Dr. Kine, I need you to monitor the quantum field fluctuations and interrupt the process if you detect dangerous instabilities. Nurse Zelara, please prepare emergency neural stabilization protocols in case this goes wrong." "What exactly are you planning to do?" Dr. Kine asked, though he was already configuring his monitoring equipment with professional efficiency. Tyler placed both hands on Queen Seraphine's temples, feeling the quantum connection strengthen into something that resembled direct neural interface. "I'm going to synchronize our consciousness patterns and use human stress response mechanisms to stabilize her all-Terran biochemistry. Human physiology is designed to handle extreme stress through adaptability rather than optimization. If I can temporarily overlay my stress management systems onto hers, it should provide enough stability for her natural healing abilities to reassert themselves." "That's either brilliant or completely insane," Dr. Kine muttered. "With human medicine, those aren't mutually exclusive categories," Tyler replied, then closed his eyes and allowed the quantum entanglement to deepen until he could sense Queen Seraphine's consciousness as clearly as his own. The experience was unlike anything in his medical training. Tyler found himself existing simultaneously in two different neurological frameworks: his own practical, adaptable human thought patterns, and Queen Seraphine's elegant, harmonically structured all-Terran consciousness. The diplomatic stress that was fragmenting her awareness felt like discordant music played at destructive volumes. But his human mental architecture was designed to process chaos and find functional solutions. Tyler began consciously modulating his own stress response systems, using techniques from emergency medicine to maintain calm focus under extreme pressure. The quantum bonding transmitted these patterns to Queen Seraphine's neural network, providing a stabilizing framework that allowed her natural healing abilities to function properly. "Her vital signs are stabilizing," Dr. Kine announced, his voice carrying surprise and growing respect. "Neural cascade patterns are returning to normal ranges, and cellular regeneration rates are approaching optimal levels." Tyler maintained the connection, gradually transferring more of his human adaptability into Queen Seraphine's consciousness, while her all-Terran elegance and harmonic awareness enhanced his own mental clarity. The process created a feedback loop of mutual enhancement that exceeded anything either species had achieved individually. "The quantum field readings are unprecedented," Nurse Zelara reported. "Both subjects are showing enhanced neural efficiency, improved immune responses, and what appears to be expanded cognitive capacity." After what felt like hours but measured only minutes according to the medical equipment, Tyler felt Queen Seraphine's consciousness stabilize into patterns that harmoniously integrated both their mental architectures. He opened his eyes to find her looking at him with an expression of wonder and something that looked distinctly like love. "How do you feel, Your Majesty?" Tyler asked, though their enhanced connection already told him the answer. Remarkable, Queen Seraphine replied, sitting up with fluid grace and displaying ears that glowed with vibrant health. And please, Tyler, I think our relationship has progressed beyond formal titles. My name is Seraphine. Tyler smiled, feeling the quantum connection settle into permanent configurations that suggested their consciousness patterns were now permanently interlinked. In that case, Seraphine, I think we need to have a serious conversation about renegotiating those trade agreements. Because no one gets to insult my wife's judgment and expect me to remain professionally detached about it. Dr. Kine's ears perked up with obvious interest. Are you suggesting a medical approach to diplomatic negotiations? I'm suggesting, Tyler said, his enhanced analytical abilities already formulating strategies that combined human adaptability with all-Terran diplomatic precision, that we approach this crisis as a medical problem. The Xerian Coalition's aggressive negotiation tactics are designed to create stress responses that impair judgment. But now that we understand how quantum consciousness bonding works, we can use it to maintain optimal cognitive function during high-pressure diplomatic situations. Queen Seraphine's ears brightened with colors that Tyler now recognized as excited interest. You're proposing to use our medical breakthrough as a diplomatic advantage. Exactly. If stress-induced poor decision-making is what caused this crisis, then stress-resistant decision-making should be able to resolve it. Tyler checked his scanner readings, which showed both their mental faculties operating at peak efficiency. Plus, I suspect the Xerian representatives will find it much harder to intimidate a queen who's backed by quantum-enhanced human stubbornness. Dr. Kine's ears performed what Tyler was learning to interpret as grudging admiration. That's actually quite ingenious, though I feel compelled to point out that using untested medical procedures as the foundation for interstellar diplomacy carries certain risks. Everything we've done today carries certain risks, Tyler replied, helping Seraphine to her feet and marveling at how their synchronized movement felt like a perfectly choreographed dance. The question is whether those risks are acceptable compared to the alternatives. The medical bay's communication system chimed with an incoming priority message. Your Majesty, came the voice of what Tyler assumed was a diplomatic aide. The Xerian delegation is demanding an immediate response to their ultimatum. They're threatening to terminate all trade agreements within the hour. Seraphine looked at Tyler, her expression carrying both determination and affection. Well, my dear husband, it appears we're about to discover whether accidental marriage makes for effective diplomatic partnership. Given how the day has gone so far, Tyler said, checking his medical equipment one final time, I'm cautiously optimistic about our chances. The Xerian Coalition's negotiation chamber had been designed to intimidate, soaring crystalline walls that amplified every sound, seating arrangements that forced visitors to crane their necks upward toward the delegation's elevated platform, and atmospheric controls that maintained temperature and humidity levels just uncomfortable enough to induce stress responses in most species. Tyler stood beside Queen Seraphine, their quantum connection allowing him to sense her calm confidence despite the deliberately hostile environment. Ambassador Thekmer, the lead Xerian representative, possessed the kind of predatory elegance that suggested his species had evolved from apex hunters who had later developed a taste for economic warfare. His scaled skin shifted through threatening color patterns while his multiple eyes tracked both Tyler and Seraphine with obvious disdain. Queen Seraphine, Ambassador Thekmer said, his voice carrying harmonics designed to trigger fight-or-flight responses. I trust you've reconsidered your recent, questionable decisions regarding interspecies relationships and are prepared to offer more reasonable terms for continued trade cooperation. Tyler felt anger surge through their connection, but their quantum bonding allowed him to modulate both their emotional responses, maintaining the optimal balance between assertiveness and diplomatic courtesy. Ambassador, I believe there may be some misunderstanding about the nature of diplomatic negotiations between our peoples. And you are, Ambassador Thekmer's multiple eyes focused on Tyler with the intensity of someone examining a particularly annoying insect. Dr. Tyler Kane, Royal Consort and Chief Medical Advisor, Tyler replied, noting with satisfaction how their quantum-enhanced cognitive abilities allowed him to project confidence despite his complete lack of diplomatic training. I'm here because this situation has medical as well as political implications. Ambassador Thekmer's color patterns shifted to what Tyler's enhanced perception interpreted as contemptuous amusement. Medical implications. Are you suggesting that Queen Seraphine's poor judgment in choosing an inferior species as a mate is a matter for medical treatment? Tyler smiled, feeling Seraphine's mental touch provide additional analytical clarity. Actually, I'm suggesting that your negotiation tactics appear to be based on inducing stress responses that impair cognitive function in your diplomatic partners. From a medical perspective, that's a fascinating approach, but it only works if your targets don't understand what's happening. What are you implying, human? Tyler activated his medical scanner, which immediately began analyzing the environmental conditions and the physiological responses of everyone in the chamber. Your atmospheric controls are set to induce mild hypoxia, increasing anxiety and reducing decision-making capacity. The acoustic properties of this chamber create subsonic frequencies known to trigger stress responses in most humanoid species. Even your seating arrangement is designed to activate submission reflexes through forced upward gaze positioning. Ambassador Thekmer's color patterns shifted to what Tyler was learning to recognize as surprised annoyance. Such observations hardly change the economic realities of our trade relationship. Perhaps not, Seraphine said, her voice carrying the harmonic resonance that Tyler's quantum connection amplified into something approaching perfect diplomatic authority. But they do clarify the nature of this discussion. You're not here to negotiate in good faith. You're here to use psychological manipulation to extract concessions through artificial stress induction. Tyler felt their shared consciousness, processing diplomatic possibilities with remarkable efficiency. Which brings us to the medical implications. Dr. Kine, would you please share your recent findings about quantum consciousness bonding and stress resistance? Dr. Kine, who had been monitoring the proceedings from the medical bay, appeared on the chamber's communication display with obvious professional satisfaction. Certainly, Royal Consort Tyler. Our recent research has demonstrated that quantum-bonded individuals display unprecedented resistance to stress-induced cognitive impairment. Environmental manipulation tactics that would typically reduce decision-making capacity by 30 to 40% show, essentially, no effect on bonded pairs. Ambassador Thekmer's color patterns now indicated what Tyler recognized as growing alarm. This is irrelevant to our trade discussions. On the contrary, Tyler said, consulting his scanner's analysis of the ambassador's physiological responses, it's extremely relevant. Your entire negotiation strategy depends on our cognitive impairment, but we're essentially immune to your psychological manipulation techniques, which means we can make decisions based on actual economic merit rather than artificially induced panic. Queen Seraphine leaned forward, her ears cycling through colors that projected absolute confidence. So let's discuss the real trade figures, shall we? Your agricultural exports to Altara represent 42% of your total interstellar commerce. Our imports from your coalition account for less than 18% of our food security requirements. If you terminate our trade agreements, you'll experience immediate economic destabilization while we'll face minor inconvenience until alternative suppliers come online. Tyler watched Ambassador Thekmer's color patterns cycle through what appeared to be rapid recalculations. Furthermore, Tyler added, your threats about our marriage demonstrate a fundamental misunderstanding of the situation. The quantum bonding has created medical and cognitive enhancements that make us more effective leaders, not less. Your psychological manipulation tactics aren't just ineffective against us, they're actively counterproductive. The Syrian coalition maintains significant military capabilities, Ambassador Thekmer said, though his color patterns suggested this was becoming a desperate bluff rather than a genuine threat, which would be relevant if we were discussing military conflict, Seraphine replied calmly. But we're discussing trade agreements. Your military capabilities don't change the economic realities that make our trade relationship more beneficial to you than to us. Tyler felt their quantum connection providing continuous analytical support, processing diplomatic possibilities faster than his baseline human cognition could have managed. Plus, I should mention that our medical breakthrough in quantum consciousness bonding is likely to interest several other species. The therapeutic applications alone could revolutionize interstellar medicine. Dr. Kine's image on the communication display nodded enthusiastically. We've already received preliminary inquiries from the Andromeden Medical Collective and the Centauri Research Institute. The economic potential is substantial. Ambassador Thekmer's color patterns had shifted to what Tyler recognized as defeat mixed with grudging respect. What terms are you proposing? Queen Seraphine smiled, her ears glowing with colors that Tyler now associated with diplomatic victory. The same terms we offered originally, plus a research cooperation agreement for quantum consciousness studies that could benefit all our species. Also, future negotiations will be conducted in neutral environments without psychological manipulation tactics. And if we refuse? Tyler consulted his medical scanner one final time, noting that Ambassador Thekmer's stress levels had reached the point where continued resistance would likely impair his own judgment. Then you return to your coalition and explain how you terminated a profitable trade relationship, because you objected to the Queen's choice of husband, despite the fact that her marriage has actually enhanced her diplomatic effectiveness. Ambassador Thekmer's multiple eyes focused on Tyler with what appeared to be newfound respect. You are not what I expected from human diplomatic representatives. I'm not a diplomat, Tyler replied cheerfully. I'm a doctor who accidentally married a queen and discovered that quantum physics makes for excellent marriage counseling. But it turns out that medical training provides useful perspectives on negotiation pathology. Queen Seraphine's laughter created harmonics that filled the chamber with warm, pleasant frequencies. Ambassador Thekmer, do we have an agreement? The Syrian representative's color patterns settled into hues that Tyler interpreted as resigned acceptance. We accept your terms, Your Majesty, though I feel compelled to note that your husband's approach to diplomacy is highly unconventional. Unconventional solutions, Tyler said, helping Seraphine to her feet as their quantum connection hummed with mutual satisfaction, seemed to work well for unconventional problems. As they left the negotiation chamber, Tyler marveled at how dramatically his life had changed in less than 12 hours. He'd started the day as a simple medical officer and was ending it as a quantum-bonded royal consort who had apparently developed an aptitude for diplomatic problem-solving. So, he said to Seraphine as they walked through corridors filled with organic architecture that pulsed with celebratory light patterns, what exactly does the rest of being married to an alien queen involve? Well, Seraphine replied, her ears cycling through colors that Tyler now recognized as anticipatory joy. There are formal state dinners, cultural exchange ceremonies, and the occasional need to resolve interstellar crises through creative applications of medical science. Tyler considered this, his enhanced cognitive abilities processing the implication, while his human instincts simply appreciated the fact that his accidental marriage had turned out to involve someone he genuinely liked and respected. That sounds challenging and rewarding in roughly equal measure. Most worthwhile relationships do, Seraphine said, taking his hand and allowing their quantum connection to deepen into something that felt like coming home to a place he'd never known existed. Though I should warn you that tomorrow we have a meeting with the Andromeden trade representatives, and they're known for using pheromone-based negotiation tactics. Tyler laughed, feeling their shared consciousness resonate with humor and affection. Well, after today, I'm fairly confident we can handle whatever the universe decides to throw at us. Though I should probably read up on Andromedan physiology before we meet with them. I love that you're approaching interdimensional diplomacy as a medical problem, Seraphine said, her mental voice carrying warmth that made their quantum connection glow with shared happiness. Everything's a medical problem if you think about it correctly, Tyler replied. Diplomacy is just group therapy for civilizations, and thanks to our accidental bonding, we're apparently the most mentally healthy diplomatic team in the galaxy. As they reached the royal quarters that were now officially his home, Tyler reflected on how his casual yes, baby, had led to quantum consciousness bonding, revolutionary medical discoveries, successful diplomatic negotiations, and what appeared to be a genuine love match with someone whose ears could literally light up with happiness. It had definitely been the most eventful medical consultation of his career. No regrets? Seraphine asked, apparently sensing his reflective mood through their connection. Tyler looked at her, brilliant, beautiful, alien, and now permanent.